Well, hello, everybody. According to this, I'm on live right now. I haven't been on here for is it 2 weeks or 3 weeks now. Um, little bit of a boo boo, little accident. Not my best for a while, so I needed to take a break, and also just a lot of work related things going on right now that I've had to give priority to. Not wearing my contact lenses today. That's why you're seeing me with the spectacles. As far as the beard goes, ever since I became self employed and started working home after the pandemic, I got into some bad habits, like not shaving every day and sometimes getting so immersed in my work that I don't leave home. And then it's like 5, 6 days later, I'm going, oh my gosh, I've got a beard. I didn't intend for this. It just happened. I'll probably be rid of it tomorrow because tomorrow I uh, do the show with the wonderful Dr. Whimsy Anderson, Taco Tuesdays on her channel, the Oracle of Whimsy. And I'm looking forward to that very much because I've also been off that show, but for different reasons. Whimsy has been away in Israel. She had quite an adventure. She's back home. And the last I heard from her, she is recovering from her jet lag. And she's been doing a few shows here and there. And we do our first Taco Tuesdays tomorrow. So it'll be great to be working with her again. Um, Checking to see if my glasses are on straight. I usually don't wear these. Let's see if anybody finds me. Anybody starts joining in. Uh, Maybe because I have been away, people think I abandoned them, and that is not the case at all. I just kind of had to take care of myself for a while. Um, it's a lot of work doing shows like this. I mean, it may not seem like that. Yeah. Oh, Chuck, a lot of work. You're sitting on your couch talking into your laptop. But it is when you have all of your other scheduled activities and you're sticking to an itinerary, and then you have to, like, oh, that's right. I've got to go on and do this live stream on Mondays. I still haven't gotten back into doing videos, individual pieces, which I was doing up until about a year ago. And I was working very, very hard on those. Um, I reached a saturation point, which I don't know if others have had this happen to them when they've tried to do YouTube shows. Um, by that I mean a YouTube channel where you're doing your videos, you're doing your live streams, and so forth, and it's a lot, and you don't get monetized right away. It takes a long time. It takes a lot of hours, a lot of work to get monetized. So I'm certainly not at that point. I is one of the reasons I had to cut back on it because it was turning into a second career. When you're spending 8, 9, 10 hours a day on something, that's a second career. And I wasn't getting compensated for it. Hi, Joyce. Thank you for joining. I wasn't sure if my live stream was going out or not. Joyce, as you can see, I'm not wearing my contact lenses today. My glasses, my eyes are getting a lot better, but I did need to take a break for a while. Uh, Hey, Chris, thanks for joining. I was just talking to Scott this morning. He's a mutual friend of ours. So anyway, I was just saying that trying to do a YouTube channel is not for the faint of heart. There seem to be all these people who have like a million followers and they're monetized. I don't know quite what their secret is. It hasn't happened for me as of yet, but I'm not worried about it. But I want to keep this fun and keep it light for the time being, something that I can actually enjoy. And I do enjoy doing this live stream, checking in with everybody each week. And a day will come, I will get back into the video production again. But I think it was just, I pushed myself too far. It was last year, April of last year. It was during Oscar season, and I live on a good day when the traffic is cooperative, about 10 minutes from downtown Hollywood. When the traffic is not cooperating, it's more like 25 minutes to half an hour. Anybody who knows Los Angeles traffic. But it was Oscar week, and I thought it'd be fun to go down there, go to the Dolby Theater where all of the stuff was going on. And I mean stuff. I mean, literally, it takes a week to get that place ready, literally rolling out the red carpet, putting up all of the grandstands, the bleachers, setting up all the lighting. And then there is massive, massive security that has to come into place because, frankly, the Oscars are a terrorist dream. That many famous people in one building. I had it confirmed that they actually have snipers on the rooftops, guns aimed down at the theater. I mean, when I say they, I mean security, the good people. They're drones, helicopters. They have to weld manhole covers shut, remove mailboxes, anything that could assist a terrorist, a bomber. All that has to be done. But anyway, there's a lot of fun stuff that goes on also. And I went down there and with my iPhone, and I was making all these videos on the Hollywood Walk of Fame and telling stories. And I put together 144 videos in 1 month. And that just about killed me. I say that facetiously, but I had friends genuinely worried about my health. Like, you're pushing yourself too hard, Chuck. And I realized I was, and I needed to step back and work on a lot of my other projects. I'm a very creative person. I'm always writing. I'm always drawing. I'm always planning. I've always got a multitude of projects going on at the same time. And I realized when I wasn't seeing the results happening for the YouTube channel at the rate that I was hoping for, I thought, okay, I just need to step back from this. But this weekly show is a way for me it serves as a placeholder, a marker, a place for you guys to know I haven't gone away completely. And hopefully it keeps me a little bit in the algorithms. I don't entirely understand the algorithms. I don't know if anybody entirely understands what they're about. But yeah, I've got a couple of people here with me, good friends. And Joyce, I'm looking forward to when you get back to your show again. I know you had to, it's private. We talked about this, but you needed to step away from your show for a while also. But Joyce Petrus is a gifted astrologer, numerologist, and she's done some chart work for me and for a very dear friend of mine. We've been on her show, and I can't wait for her to come back. And Joyce, anything I can do to help you, I want to be here for you, because you're sensational, and the world deserves to see you. Chris, I hope you're doing well too. I haven't been on here in 3 weeks. And then during those 3 weeks, we have our new Pope. And Chris, I think Scott was saying that a mutual friend of yours knows the Pope, or at least knew him when he was Father Bob, not Pope Leo. But I think that's sensational. And hey, if I can use any connections, I'd love to have an audience. It's worth renewing my passport. I need to do that still. I let my passport expire during the pandemic, and that was 5 years ago. I need to get it back. That's definitely on my list of things to do. So I don't know what to talk about much today. I always come on here and keep it very free form, and always hope that people out there will have some questions or something. If not, that's fine too. Let's see. It's been a weird period. I've gone through my own thing right now, but I have friends. I don't know if any of you others are going through it, but I have friends who are going through their own crises right now. Is that the correct English? Crises. But it seems like everybody I know, like a dear friend of mine in Oregon. No, it's not Dr. Wimsey. It's another friend. But he was going to have last time I communicated with him about 6 weeks ago, he was going to have some what he referred to as minor surgery, some laparoscopic abdominal surgery. Well, I finally heard from him today and found out that simple surgery ended up being 9 hours, and it was major abdominal surgery. He's not doing well. Had another friend call me today in tears over her boyfriend and how things are not happening. Another friend called me his crisis, and I thought, what is going on today? And then my cat, dear Sasha, you see her on the show, she came in, meow, 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 holding on to me for dear life, and then she ran off. And then I discovered about an hour later, as I stepped into it barefoot, that she threw up in the hallway. So and cats are very sensitive to energy anyway. She's fine, or hopefully everyone else is fine. But Joyce, maybe you know if there's something going on astrologically. I need to get you back on here as a guest sometime so we can talk about this. We did some shows last year together, but yeah, there's some weird energy right now. Really weird. Let's see. I don't know what else I can talk about. I've been just been immersed in a lot of drawings, a lot of artwork. Joyce, it's in the stars. It's quite literally. Um, I'm working on several projects right now, and I'm keeping them largely confidential right now. It's not that I don't trust you guys, but I've just learned it's always best not to go public with things until there's an actual deal that's completed. It's actually out there, because I have had some things, I could politely say borrowed from me, but the true word is stolen from me. So I don't talk about them. But one of my projects is I'm designing an oracle card set, and I'm also designing a tarot card set. I won't say what the theme is, but I don't think there's any harm in saying that. I'm also doing some artwork for a good friend of mine who has written a book, and I agreed that I would do the illustrations for her. She's done a lot for me, so I'm very happy to do this for her in return. And I have another friend I've done some illustrations for her book. A lot of people are self-publishing right now. In fact, Dr. Whimsy and I, we do our show tomorrow. We're going to do an author interview. It's with this book right here, The Sunny Side of Crazy. I'm not giving a plug right here, but I have to finish the last third of the book tonight. But what Whimsy and I like to do is give a spotlight to self-published authors. And there is some marvelous work out there that deserves to find audiences. And I'm proud to say our show, it's a much bigger audience with Whimsy's show than this little thing I'm doing right now. We reach several thousand people, and we are bringing that audience to those authors. I'm thrilled about that. I have loved books my whole life. I have great respect for writers. Many years ago, I used to work with a literary agent, and that was quite an experience, because he graciously taught me so much about the publishing industry. He helped me to get a literary agent in New York, wonderful woman named Loretta Barrett, who used to work with Jackie Kennedy Onassis. And she represented my book. It was the one that I was working on about I Love Lucy, which unfortunately did not sell. She came very, very close. She actually got as far as the senior editor of Random House. We almost had a deal, but the quote unquote money people shot it down. When you do nonfiction like this, it's extremely expensive. A lot of people don't know that. In my case, because the topic was I Love Lucy, we would have had to have paid a licensing fee to CBS, which still owns the show to this day. Lucy and Desi sold the show back in 1957 to CBS. And at the time, $5 million sounded like a lot of money. Not that it isn't now, but I Love Lucy is now worth close to $1 billion. Lucille Arnaz once said in an interview, Mom and Dad, why did you sell it? But Lucy and Desi sold The Prince of I Love Lucy, and they used that money to buy RKO Studios, which in turn became Desi Lou Studios. And for a while during the late 1950s, Desi Studios was the most powerful motion picture studio in Hollywood. They were bigger than Paramount, Universal, MGM. And a lot of people don't realize Desi Arnaz, who was the president of Desi for a time, literally was the most powerful man in Hollywood. But anyway, to boy, I get off track, don't I? But it does tie in. To sell my book, it would have meant, I believe at the time, if I remember correctly, it was 15% to CBS. Another hefty percentage would have had to have gone to Lucille Arnaz and Desi Jr. because they own the rights to their parents' images. And then there would have been legal fees because whenever you do nonfiction, to do it correctly, you need to have a team of lawyers comb through it carefully for any potential libel. And then the photographs, which I would have been responsible for personally. At that time, I was quoted $20,000 just for rights for the photos. So probably I would have ended up owing money. No, yes. And of course, Loretta Barrett's fee as my agent. I forgot about that. So there's a lot more to publishing a book than people realize. At least this was the case back about 20 years ago when I was trying to sell this book. The world is changing. And, at the time, Bart Andrews, the literary agent I was working with, he said that there was there was like a huge stigma to anything self-published. That was like the bottom of the totem pole. That was like desperation. If you couldn't publish your book, you had to pay somebody to basically print it up for you. And then you tried to sell it or promote it yourself. Well, we're in a very, very different world right now. And a lot of that has to do with things like Amazon, where I'm still learning about this myself, but I have some friends who have self-published with Amazon. And they said Amazon makes it so easy. They take care of so many of the details for you. Plus, it's out there where it can easily be found. You're generally, as the author, you're responsible yourself to promote this, but it's there. It's there. It's easy to find, and it's very acceptable. And when Whimsy and I first started doing these interviews together, I carried a little bit of that prejudice, from having worked with Bart, and I quickly learned it's a new world. It's a new world. And when I started to read these books every month, a new book, some of the most incredible writing, like my dear friend Rosalia Scalia. I say that, my dear friend. She lives in Baltimore. She's written some fabulous books, wonderful short stories. And I've told her, my God, you're like Hemingway. There's so much talent out there that's now coming to light. Hi, Kathy. Thank you for joining. There's so much talent that's now getting a spotlight. It's getting recognition. And thanks to little shows like what I'm doing here or bigger shows like Whimsy's doing, so many people have a show now, a podcast, they have something on YouTube. There are a lot of places authors can go to, because people like myself, you, Joyce, when you do your show again, we're always in need of guests. We're in need of topics. And then there are authors who need people like us to promote their work. And it's just great. It's great to see this happening. And I have a few pieces. I'm not going to discuss them right now, but a few perspective books, art books, some writings that I'm hoping to dip my toe in the water and try the self-publishing route as well. And another friend of mine, she shared similar prejudices as me. Ooh, self-publishing. No, I want Simon and Schuster. I want Random House. Well, no, I've shown her what people are doing, and now she's receptive to trying to publish one of her books. And I look at it this way also. It's just about taking action. I believe the universe, it's a like to like thing. The universe sees us putting things out, literally putting things out into the world, and then it comes back to us. And I think, even if I self-publish one thing, it doesn't do well, 10 people read it, at least I put it out to the world. I made a statement. I've got it there where it can be found. It might, who knows, maybe 5 years from now, the right person is going to find it and get something from it. I don't know. I don't know where this is going to go, but it's something I want to pursue. So these are some of my projects that I'm working on that I had to put on hold when I was doing videos for this channel 8 to 10 hours a day. It'll come back, but I just need to rotate things. I am an innately creative person. It's very hard for me to turn that off. I even when I was doing my real life job before the pandemic, when I was in the health industry, I was acting as a nutritionist, vitamins, herbs, homeopathy. Through Dr. Whimsy Anderson, I got my license as a naturopathic doctor's assistant. Pretty serious stuff. But in between, during downtimes, I was always like taking scraps of paper. I can't turn off ideas when they come to me. So I was always jotting things down on little pieces of paper and stuffing them in my pants pocket. And then I come home at night, probably have 30, 40 pieces of paper in my pocket. And then I would try to type all that out on my computer so I wouldn't lose it. It's just like people who get inspiration during the night when they're dreaming. I know of people who have kept a little tape recorder on their nightstand or a pad and paper, because if you don't write it down in the moment, very often we lose it or we never get it back in quite the same way. And I was so excited when I saw that J.K. Rowling, or J.K. Rowling, which is the correct pronunciation, wrote the Harry Potter series and went on to become a billionaire, a self-made billionaire. She started out, when she was writing the first book, she was a waitress in a diner. And she literally wrote Harry Potter, the first Harry Potter book, on napkins, and did the same thing, tucked them in her apron or pocket or whatever, and went home and then pieced it all back together. It's just, creativity flows to us in different ways. And I try my best to listen to it. Sometimes it's a little whisper in my ear, and sometimes it's a big loud scream, Chuck, write me down, and I've got ideas, lots of ideas. And I was in my storage unit not too long ago, and well, here's the thing with my storage unit. I had one, and anybody who has those things knows they tend to just keep jacking up the rent higher and higher and higher, and to the where it was becoming prohibitive. And I said, well, is there anything we can do about this? And they said, well, why don't you take another unit? We have one the same size for about half the price. And I said, half the price? It was true. And I thought, well, I can't say no to that. But it meant taking 4 long days, moving heavy boxes and furniture all by myself from one unit to another, which was almost down the hall, like down the hall and down a little corridor. But it will save me a lot of money. But anyway, when you go through a storage unit, and I went through this maybe a decade ago when I did my last big move, I saw that as a good opportunity to, well, I was moving anyway and going through boxes and stuff, to actually pare down stuff in my storage unit. And oh my gosh, you'd see these TV shows about hoarders. Well, I'm not like that, thank God. But I was definitely hoarding in my storage unit. I saw so much crap in there. I mean, it's like appliances. I was kitchen appliances, things like that were already outdated. And I thought, I'm paying all this money to store this stuff when it would have been so much cheaper just to have bought new appliances and things. You see that. I weeded it down to about maybe 20% of what was in there. But I still needed a storage unit because I was moving. I had to move. I've told the story before about West Hollywood and rent control. It's great when it works for you, rent control, until you've lived in a place a little too long, and then you get unscrupulous landlords who know they can get about 2 or 3 times the rent for your apartment, and they start harassing you. And it got so bad I had to get a lawyer. Almost went to court. We did an out of court settlement, but part of my settlement was I had to move. And to do that here in Los Angeles, because there is such an apartment shortage, and it is so expensive as it is, and because I'd been paying for a rent-controlled apartment, I had the shock of finding out what it would cost to get something of similar size. So I knew I had to downsize and move to a smaller place, which turned out okay because I got a really cute little apartment, in which, even though it's smaller, it has the fireplace, it has the French windows, the crown molding. 1941, it has so much charm. So I love the apartment, but I had some pieces of furniture, like a beautiful antique sleigh bed that had belonged to my great grandparents. I don't know how many greats to add to that, but it was from the mid 19th century. A few pieces like that. I thought, there's no way I want to part with things like that, just in the hope that I can get a bigger place someday. But I also had a lot of things I didn't want to throw away. I mean, I know everybody lectures, you can get rid of this, you don't need that. What are you holding on that for? Well, my answer to that is, it's a personal choice. It's my money. It's my right if I want to store something. And there are things I don't want to part with. I have a lot of books that I love. I have uh, things from my college days, high school years, things that hold sentiment for me that a lot of people are not sentimental. I am. It matters to me. So I love holding on to things like that. But I guess the reason I'm telling this is, I found boxes of things. I was like, oh, thank God I didn't throw these things away, because I had boxes for different writing projects. One of those, again, I'm not going to talk about what it is, but it was a biography that I've always wanted to write. And I found all these notes and, shall we say, head starts, all stored away in this box. I thought, I forgot I did this. And I want to pick that book up again. By that I mean pick it up and start writing it again. I've got so much research material already done. I found boxes of some other writing projects, art projects I had forgotten about. I was like, again, thank goodness I didn't throw these things away. So it was enough to reassure me that it is justifiable, the money I'm paying to store these things. But some of the things I found, my dear friend Bart Andrews, the literary agent, he was also a writing partner for me. After he suffered several debilitating strokes, he could no longer work or write anymore, but he did start writing plays. Now, he never published any of these, but he wrote some really beautiful things. And I thought, with Amazon Publishing, it might be a really beautiful tribute to at least one or two of Bart's plays. Get them printed, so at least they're out there in the world. So that's another thing that I want to do. So I think I'm going to be making some more trips to my storage unit. It turned out to be the treasure trove that I was actually hoping it would be. And now I'm paying a lot less money to store until they start jacking up prices again. I haven't even looked at my comments here. Hi, Ward. Thanks for joining. Oh, yes, I am doing a lot better. I'm still not wearing my contact lenses yet, but hey, you get to see my glasses. Got my nice little family here. Oh, Joyce, a big thunderstorm is rolling in. I hope you're okay, because you're in tornado country. I've been seeing the news. It's awful. I have a lot of my friends back east. Oh, Chuck, aren't you worried about earthquakes? Oh, I'd be so scared to live where you live. Earthquakes. And yet it seems like my friends back east are going through a lot more turmoil than I'm ever going through here with all of these storms and tornadoes. I see whole towns wiped off the map, roofs ripped off of buildings. And honestly, for all the quakes and tremors we have out here in Los Angeles, we don't have anything near like that. I don't know if you remember this. It was a few months ago. I had to think on this. It wasn't the actual live broadcast I was doing, but I was making a video. And during the video, the whole place started shaking. We started having a great big earthquake. I mean, not, I shouldn't say great big, because obviously, as you can see, my home, it did not crumble down. It was nothing like that. But it was big enough to shake everything. I thought, oh, this is kind of cool. I'm recording this in real time, a video. Wow. So I don't even remember what date that was, which video that was. Don't ask me to find it for you. I don't think I could, but that did happen. Might be funny sometime if I'm doing a live show and we get a little quake. It could happen. Let's see what are some or you were close to some bad storms yourself. I'm so sorry. Kathy, where's Sasha? Well, Sasha is, she's all sleeping somewhere. I don't know. Maybe she'll join us, maybe she won't. It depends on her mood. And you know that's the case with cats. It's always their mood. It's one of the reasons I love them. Some people hate cats. I adore them. I've had a lifelong love. You know, I was just thinking, I've had a cat most of my life till I was about 11 years old. I got and they've all been Siamese. I got my first Siamese kitten when I was 11 years old. And when he died, I went about 3.5 years without cats. And that was because I was in college. And then I've had them ever since. Loved everyone, cherished everyone. And I've often thought, when people say, I don't like cats, well, I'm one of them. I don't know if I like you either. You know, it was, I think, Mark Twain who said something to the effect, if a person loves cats, well, then that's all I need to know. In fact, I was reading Mark Twain loved cats so much that when he would travel, he would rent, that's right, rent cats from people just so he could have them around him. He adored them and never wanted to be without. And my little Sasha, she can be a pain in the butt. Oh my God, she is temperamental as can be, but she is so loving and sweet and very, very intuitive. Another thing I love about cats. It's like, I don't know, I relate to them. I should check some other comments here. Word. On a somewhat lighter note, do you have any tales about the recently departed Ruth Buzzy? Well, I wish I did. I saw her in person one time, and that one time was the one time I also saw Lucille Ball and John Ritter. It was back when Lucy was doing her final, fortunately ill-fated, situation comedy called Life with Lucy. It's the one where they shot 13 episodes and only 8 episodes ever aired. There is a DVD set that does have all 13 episodes. And I sat in the studio audience for one of the filmings. And John Ritter was Lucy's guest. And Ruth Buzzy had a small, like a little cameo role on the episode. That was the only time I ever got to see her. But I have heard the most beautiful stories about Ruth Buzzy from people who did know her. She was the real deal. Very warm, gracious, sweet. She loved her fans. I've heard, I saw on social media so many fans telling about the times they encountered her, got her autograph, how she would spend time chatting with them. She genuinely loved people. That's something very clear about Ruth Buzzy. And, it was after she died, there were so many clips, like from Laugh-In and other things that she did appearing, um, in just little segments. And I thought, this is a woman who really deserved far more acclaim than she ever got. She should have been looked upon as one of the truly great comedians. And I don't think she ever got that status. But she was so inventive, and among the clips they were showing were, like, you remember the old Dean Martin roast from the 1970s, and she had that character from Laugh-In, Gladys Ormsby, the hairnet and the ugly sweater and the support stockings and, of course, the purse. And there was a clip of her. It was the roast from Muhammad Ali. And she was beating the crud out of him with her purse. I mean, beating him up, and to where people had to come and grab her and carry her off the stage while she's still swinging her purse. And I thought, only Ruth Buzzy could have gotten away with beating the crap out of Muhammad Ali, because you could see him say, oh my God, but he was laughing about it. He did have a sense of humor. Thank goodness. Not saying he would have hauled off and hit her or anything like that, but they did have a great sense of humor. And of course, I did meet Muhammad Ali once. He was actually a sweet, gentle man. I met Muhammad Ali and I forget which daughter it was. He had two daughters, and this was the daughter who was a female boxer, and in her own right. I can't remember her whole story, but a beautiful, beautiful woman. And what struck me was how devoted she was to her father. Oh, she loved him so much. And you could just see it, the way she was taking care of him. Because when I met Muhammad Ali, he was very, very ill with Parkinson's. I say this respectfully, but he was like a shell of himself. He was trembling and shaking. He was very frail. And his daughter was just there holding onto his arm and saying, "Now, Daddy, do you want this? You want that?" She was calling him Daddy, and you could just see the love in her eyes for her father. He was her hero. And this was when I was working in West Hollywood, and we had these big glass windows. So I saw him going out in the parking lot, and it was like the Pied Piper. All of a sudden, all these people recognized him, and people were all running over to him, but it was very respectful, almost reverential, the way people were coming, and they were like circling around him, but it was love. And one by one, people were coming to him, just like shaking his hand, and there were people who wanted to hug him. And I watched this over and over, and I watched people, tears running down their eyes. I mean, it was one of the most moving celebrity experiences I have ever seen. I've met a lot of celebrities. I have never encountered someone as loved as Muhammad Ali. I witnessed it personally. But anyway, I didn't mean to go off on track there, but this show. This is the way it usually works for me. But anyway, getting back to Ruth Buzzy, I was laughing so hard at that clip of her in that character. Yeah. Well, where she was on Lucy's last sitcom, but she also did a really good guest appearance on Here's Lucy, in which all those episodes are available. Oh, that's quite a story about Ruth Buzzy's parents. They ran a mortuary. I didn't know that. And the family told jokes to cheer themselves up. And that's when she learned to love comedy. Well, actually, I've heard that from a number of comedians. Very similar stories. That's how they became comedians. They saw the healing power of comedy. There was somebody I was watching on The View, and I am ashamed to say I cannot think of his name, other than he was describing, as a child, his father had abandoned his mother and himself. His mother was forced to have to work and support him and raise him on her own. And they both were in deep grief over this loss, this abandonment. And because he loved his mother so much, he just started telling her jokes. He wanted to make her laugh. He wanted to make her smile. And that's when he discovered he had a talent for comedy. He said when he could make his mother laugh again, he knew he had to take that out into the world. But it's so interesting, if you read biographies, a lot of comedians had tragic childhoods. Even like the great Carol Burnett, both her parents died of alcoholism. She was raised by her grandmother. They at one point were on welfare. There are the famous stories of how little Carol and her grandmother would go to Thrifty's drugstore at the soda fountain, and they'd steal the silverware and the napkins and the salt and pepper and the ketchup. I love that Carol was telling the story of how they would then go to the ladies' room and go at each of the stalls, take all the rolls of toilet paper and put that in grandma's purse too, so they would be set for the week. And yeah, Carol Burnett was telling a story on Larry King, and she said, "Oh my God, I'm going to have to write a check to Thrifty now." Let's see here. Oh, where's some other comments here? Ward, no, you said Miss Layla. Oh, Miss Layla Ali, perhaps. That's cute. Yes. Oh, yes. I just saw from his daughter that Muhammad Ali he was graciously and tenderly taken care of by his family, and certainly by his daughter. I could just see he was her hero, an inspiration. She looked up to him, but to see all those people in the parking lot, I was even naive to how beloved and popular Muhammad Ali was, the following he still had. When I saw the people with tears running down their face, that said a lot to me. I'll never forget that. Let's see. Let's see. I was just reading this about John Belushi here. His grandmother was Albanian and spoke almost no English, while he spoke virtually zero Albanian. But he became very animated to communicate with her. Yes, through comedy. Through comedy. It's the universal language. Yes, that's cliche, but it is the universal language. Comedy heals. Comedy lifts moods. It lifts spirits. Literally heals physically. A very dear friend of mine who had breast cancer, mastectomy, had to go through grueling chemotherapy, and she said the thing that got her through it, and she insisted the thing that really got her through it, was I Love Lucy. She just watched episode after episode after episode, and she swears it helped her to get healthy again. You know, I sometimes feel that comedians, people like Lucille Ball, for example, Lucille Ball's name, Lucille, is a derivative of the word Lucinda, which literally means carrier of light. That's what Lucille Ball was. She was a carrier of light. And I just cite her as one of many examples. Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, Carol Burnett, Robin Williams, Joan Rivers, Phyllis Diller, and go on and on. Comedians who did so much to lift people's spirits and bring joy. And, light casts out darkness. So I've often thought that people who are incarnated into this world with that purpose, it's just as important as somebody discovering the cure for polio, or treating cancer, or bringing about world peace. It's a great mission all to itself, something to be very proud of. And I've been fascinated with Lucille Ball because it clearly was her mission. I'm a believer that we incarnate into this world with a purpose. Well, obviously, her purpose was to be this great television star and spread comedy. But the woman was born in 1911. It didn't exist. Television had not been invented, but yet it's what she was born to do. It's like her soul knew, well, I've just got to let it catch up with me, but we will intersect at some point. And they did in 1951. Thank goodness. Yes, and Joyce, that's true. Laughter releases endorphins. That is so true. What was this? I wonder how many times Lucy heard folks tell her watching her truly healed them. Oh, she heard that story many, many times. I know that for fact because I've known friends of Lucy's. But I want to emphasize something. Lucy never was jaded to that. She never took that for granted. Lucy was surprisingly humble. I say this from people who knew her, who've told me stories. Very, very humble woman. Yes, she was very self-aware. She was highly intelligent. Of course, she knew she was a great star. Of course, she knew she affected people, but she never lost that humility, that every woman quality about her. And that was part of the secret of the Lucy Ricardo character. She was an every woman. Lucy, when she and Desi were first planning the show, they were trying to come up with different premises. And one of the earliest premises was they were going to play variations of themselves, where it was going to be the story of a movie star, Lucy, married to a famous Cuban band leader. They were going to basically play fictionalized versions of themselves. And they quickly thought, oh, no, 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 no. They both realized, who in the hell is going to relate to that? And Lucy said, you know what? All the movies I've ever done, the only characters I've ever really loved doing were housewives. I want my character to just be a simple housewife. Now, more than a simple housewife, a housewife with a big dream, show business aspirations, but at the heart, she was a housewife. It was something everybody could relate to. She was, and later she became a mother and a housewife. And as absurd as the Lucy Ricardo character could be, they always made it very clear, little things. She always kept a clean, immaculate home. They made it clear that she cooked beautiful meals. You saw her with little Ricky. She was a wonderful mother to her child. And I don't mean that to sound sexist, but that was the idea of the 1950s, the housewife, the mother. And I recognize, of course, the world has changed for women, but at the time these were very virtuous qualities. And Lucy Ricardo always had that. Now, the other thing about Lucy Ricardo, as outrageous as she was, you never forgot at the core of that was a lady. She was beautifully dressed, coiffed, her makeup. She behaved like a lady, and you never forgot that. And that was one of the reasons her comedy worked so well, because as far-fetched as she got, you always knew at the core who she was. And that made the situations all the more absurd. So it worked to that effect also. But it was that humility and relatability of Lucy and other comedians. And I think because so many comedians had tragedy in their lives, it that in itself gave them humility and relatability, even if it wasn't obvious on the surface. You got that on a soul level when you watch these comedians. But yeah, that's right. The word that gets back, I had to get back on track there about Lucy being told how many times she had healed people. And I was talking about how humble she was. A friend of mine was actually at her home. He was with her a lot during the last months of her life. And he said fans were always sending her like homemade, jars of their homemade jellies and jams, or baking pies and cookies and sending them to her. And she loved them. And she wasn't worried about somebody trying to poison her or something. I guess she just knew, it was love. People were sending her things out of love. And he said there was one day a minister sent some minister in the Midwest or something sent flowers to her door. And Lucy was so touched by that, she immediately got on the phone, went through operator assistant or something, phone directory, but she got his phone number. And my friend was there watching it. She called the man up at his home to thank him personally for the flowers. Now, oh my God, if I had known that, I would have been sending Lucy flowers and like, where's my phone call? But that's so sweet. That's who Lucy was. Yeah, now Ward, that's a good point. Lucy had aspired to become a mother for so many years before it happened. So I think that was reflected on the series. When you saw her with little Ricky, that was very real. That was the part of Lucy that just cherished being a mother. Lucy wanted to be a mother so badly that during the early years of her marriage, when she couldn't conceive, she would actually keep scrapbooks. She would cut out pictures of babies in magazines and just make a scrapbook for herself so she could look at the babies. I guess it was like a visualization thing. And of course, she went through many miscarriages. There were times when, that she and Desi were apart because he would be traveling the country with his band. She'd been in Hollywood working on films. That was the whole basis of I Love Lucy. They weren't planning on this show becoming the #1 show and playing 70 years later and becoming iconic. They just wanted a reason to be together in the same city so they could work together and start a family. That's what they wanted more than anything in the world. And the first child, and I've told this before, but Lucy, at the age of 39, she thought it was all over for her. She thought her film career was over. She was 39. In those days, that was considered elderly for an actress. It was like, time to go out to pasture. Your leading lady days were over. It's such a different world now. But in those days, 39 was not a good age to be an actress in Hollywood. And she'd had so many miscarriages, and she just thought, I'm never going to be a mother. It's never going to happen. And she thought it was all over. She was very despondent. And then, like 1 year later, and this is a great story. I love telling this to people because any of us who ever lose hope, you never know what is around the corner. 1 year later, Lucy gave birth to her first child 2 weeks before her 40th birthday. And 8 weeks later, started rehearsals for I Love Lucy. And within 4 months of that show, she was literally the biggest star in Hollywood. She was bigger than all of the actresses she had idolized, like Bette Davis, Joan Crawford, Barbara Stanwyck, Hepburn, because they were also around 40 and their careers were starting to dive, their film careers. Lucy's career was through the stratosphere because television was this wonderful new thing that people were getting in their homes. It was the big thing. And here was this show that just shot to #1. And Lucy, so at the age of 40, became a first-time mother and the biggest star of Hollywood. Year before, she thought it was over. So never give up. Never give up. You never know what's around the corner. What's this here? What's this word? I bet you'd have bought out FTD with your paychecks. Oh, yes. Sending flowers to Lucy. Yes. Okay. Sorry. I was a little slow there getting that. I think FTD. Oh, yeah. Of course. Of course. Immediately thinking of that image. What is it? Mercury, running forth with the flowers. Where is this? We all need to keep in mind her hope is possible despite very daunting odds. Like Lucy, especially in times such as these. Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the things Whimsy and I talk about on the show we do on Tuesdays, because that show tends to be, because it's not always, but it tends to be a lot more serious. We definitely talk about a lot of news events. We talk about our president. Enough said there. And, because of my line of work, in real life, I'm Whimsy's assistant, and one of my jobs is to make phone calls to all of her clients all across America. I talk to all points of the country every day. Florida, New York, South Dakota, Washington, New Mexico, you name it. I talk to all corners. And I guess because it's a lot of like-minded people, there are so many people, certainly since the election inauguration of you-know-who, as Whoopi Goldberg calls him, you-know-who. There's been a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, tension. And I've had a lot of conversations with people about this very thing, about how we've got to call upon our hope, our optimism. We've got to find the love within ourselves. I've even said, watch I Love Lucy, watch Robin Williams, watch whoever it is that makes you laugh, because laughter does drive away evil. It does drive away darkness. It keeps us going. And that seems to be the theme right now. We've got to just hang on and trust it's going to get better. And I do believe that, because I don't think the universe can sustain this madness much longer. And I think it is going to get better, but it's up to us individually. And individually, as a collective, we join our forces together. So yeah, let's laugh. Say positive. Let's find whatever it is that's our own personal creativity, our own artistry. Now, my art is kind of obvious. I draw, I paint, I write. But someone else, it might be, maybe you're a gourmet cook. You love to be in your kitchen, or you love to have your hands in dirt in your garden, or you like to crochet or knit, or you like to work on your car engine or something. Whatever your art is, find the joy in that, find the fulfillment in that, and maybe even find ways that we can share that with others. And it's like a torch, a light. We pass our light around and we light other torches, and I believe that's how we're going to survive all of this craziness right now. It's taking place, and I don't want to get nasty comments. I'm not saying from you wonderful people who are with me right now, but during the election last year, when I made it clear who I was voting for and doing volunteer work, I had some really mean comments come in, and a couple of friends who were acting as administrator for me blocked them out, and we took care of it. It wasn't anything too bad, but I'm a little sensitive to it still. And I try to be mindful, and I do this show. I always set out to make this more light and, entertainment related, but it's nice to go off into some other subjects as well. And Joyce, you've been watching the Big Bear Lake Eagles? Yeah. Has that been fun for you, Joyce? I guess it's just whatever gives you joy. Something I've been getting into again, The Crown. The Netflix series, The Crown. I was watching it faithfully, and then I got into a period where I just was not turning my TV on. And, the show concluded in 2023, but I didn't watch the final 5 episodes of the last season until recently. I'm down to the very, very last episode. But I have a friend. I thought, oh my God, you would love this show. And I went and found on Amazon the season 1 and season 2, and I gave them to him as a little gift because he's going through some hard times too. I mentioned beginning of the show, a lot of my friends are going through some bad times. I thought it would cheer him up. But anybody who's never seen the show, it is fascinating. Yes, it is based in truth primarily about Queen Elizabeth II. But the other members of the royal family as well. But it goes into a lot of factual details. But it also, if I'm not mistaken, is the most expensive television series ever done. So it's extremely lavish, beautiful sets, costumes. But beyond that, impeccable acting, beautiful writing. And I'm starting back with the original episodes again, and I forgot how much I love this. And also surprises me that it's been 9 years since the show began, and I forgot how good Claire Foy was. And then later Olivia Colman, and of course Imelda Staunton took over in the final 2 years. But I just want to give a little plug there, remind people if they've never seen it. And Joyce Page, Jackie and Shadow and their egos. Eagles, not egos, Eagles. Duh. Yes, I've been watching that too. Joyce, that didn't register with me. And you said the Big Bear Lake Eagles. For some reason, I was thinking that was a sporting team. That's what that sounds like. But yeah, Jackie and Shadow and their Eagles, Gizmo and Sunny. That is amazing. I don't know if you were watching from the beginning when they still had their eggs. The Eagles were taking turns, but it's just fascinating the way the mother and the father took turns and acted as a team, sitting on the eggs, keeping them warm, because you saw that it was in the dead of winter and snow and ice, and it was just beautiful. And then the way after they were hatched, they would fly off taking turns. One would sit on the egg and, I mean, sit with the chicks, not the eggs, the hatched chicks, while the other would go off and hunt for food. And they would go back and forth alternating. And there was a third chick. And I still remember that because here in Los Angeles on the local news, they talk about it a lot on ABC 7 whenever there's any developments in the story. And there was one day they were on live, checking in on the eagle's nest, and one of the chicks was gone, and nobody knows what happened to that third chick. They even tried to rewind the recording and everything. They could not find what happened. And someone was commenting and said, well, nature can be very cruel. Who knows? Did it fall out of the nest, out of the tree? Did the parents maybe go, survival of the fittest, you don't belong here? I don't know. But yeah, it was a huge snowstorm. It was amazing how they survived the cold. Birds are amazing creatures. Did he die of hypothermia? I don't know if they determined that, but I mean, maybe the eagles, they couldn't keep all three of them warm. I don't know. I watched the coverage where they would put their feathers and huddle over the chicks to protect them. Oh, Joyce, they did find him. Oh, Joyce, did he fall out of the nest? Just fall out of the tree and they found him? I don't know. I guess maybe they did a little autopsy on it or something to determine it was hypothermia. Was this Jackie and Shadow were sad? Oh. I was just about to say how amazing birds are. They're highly intelligent. And, I say this because I used to have a cockatoo. Had a cockatoo for 21 years, big white bird. And that bird was so smart. Cockatoos have the intelligence of about a 3-year-old child. And they're extremely loving, very nurturing. I mean, I had friends who would come over almost afraid of him, and I'd say, "Oh, go ahead, pet him. It's okay. You can stroke him. Never mind, his beak could." I understand they can crush steel in their beak. That's how strong they are. Their bite is deadly, but nonetheless, he was like, "Oh, he loved to be petted and stroked, and people were always charmed by him." I loved him, but I had him 21 years. The problem was I had neighbors who were complaining about the noise. A cockatoo, and they scream. Their scream can be heard for blocks away. So I can't say I blame my neighbors, but I had to finally get him a new home. But the other thing was, because they live so long, I think he was starting to get a little bit of dementia. He was going through some personality changes, and there were 1 or 2 times he almost attacked me when I was trying to put food and water in his cage, and that scared me a bit. And there was just something instinctively that just said, maybe I better pass him on to someone who's better equipped to handle a bird like this. I gave him to someone who had other birds, who was a bit of a bird expert, and I was very honest, about his temperament and so forth. But I had to let him go. But I had a lot of good years with him. So I learned a lot from him about the intelligence and the compassion that birds have. And to see that on camera with those 2 eagles, how adoring they were to their young chicks. And I don't know if the chicks are still in the nest or not, or if they've gone their way, literally time to leave the nest, so to speak. And that's nature also. Maybe you know more about it, Joyce. I haven't been keeping up with it lately. Yeah, they do better sometimes with other birds around for company. And that's true for most animals, creatures, humans. We all need love. We all need companionship. Oh, they're about to fledge. And that will be interesting if that gets captured on camera. I mean, that camera is there 24/7. And there are people checking the monitors. If there's anything ever significant. To see that moment when they leave. I don't know if anything like this has ever been documented to such an extent. Yeah. So we'll look out for that. I'm glad you brought that up, and you're making me think about my cockatoo. Dylan was his name. And when I first had him, it was insane, the number of pets I had. I had a Cocker Spaniel. I had a cockatoo. I had a Siamese cat. I'm almost embarrassed to tell this now. I had 2 parakeets and a 20-gallon aquarium. So I had pets encompassing land, sea, and air. And I love them. I've always loved animals. They're very dear to me. But as we get older, I think priorities change a little. It's not, I love animals just as much, but I guess as we get older, we want to simplify our lives, and we know what we want to focus on. So right now, and Kathy, you were asking me about Sasha, where she is. This would be the perfect time for Sasha to jump up on the couch. I could hold her up, but I don't know where she is right now. But I'm happy right now with my one pet, my one cat. That's enough. And believe me, Sasha has the personality of about 20 cats. So it's more than enough. Yeah. Oh, there are other YouTube channels about that sort of thing. Like you said, Lady Hawk is one to watch. I might check out some of those. It's quite intriguing. And as far as animals go, I've often thought if I can, the dust settles, I get a lot of projects taken care of. I wouldn't mind doing volunteer work on behalf of animals, like one of our local animal shelters. I think even one day a week, I'd enjoy doing that very much. But I'm also reminded it breaks my heart whenever I go to an animal shelter like the SPCA. Like we have a magnificent one in Pasadena here, and let's just put it this way: every time I go to one of those shelters, I want to adopt every single dog and cat in there and take them all home with me. My heart goes out to them. Their heart goes out to me. I see them looking through the bars like, are you going to take me home? And it'd be like, I wish I could, but we do the best we can. But I could certainly do volunteer work. Yeah, maybe I will. The one in Pasadena I found out about, it was when my last cat died, Charlie the Siamese. And he's the one who died at the stroke of midnight on New Year's Eve, when 2014 changed into 2015. His little soul did not want to go into 2015. And I had to have him cremated. And unfortunately, a lot of these pet cemeteries, pet crematoriums, I don't want to overgeneralize or say bad things about them, but I think a lot of them do play upon your emotions and your guilt, and they charge hundreds and hundreds of dollars for something that you shouldn't have to pay that for, because the SPCA in Pasadena, now I don't know what they're charging now, but in early 2015, they only charged me $65 to cremate Charlie. And they came back a week later. They had put him in a beautiful little tin with a little flower on top and in a little velvet drawstring pouch. It was done so lovingly. $65. And so I always try to spread that word to people. If you ever need to cremate a pet, check with your SPCA. You don't have to pay those ridiculous prices. But that's where I found out about them. And oh my God, I was just devastated when Charlie died. That was so hard. I was like, and we all know this. When we lose a pet, it's like losing a family member. It is losing a family member. So I was just in tears. And after I handed his body over in a box, cardboard box, I knew there was no way I could adopt another cat right away. But I just said, "Could I just go look at your cats?" And saw so many in there I wanted to take home. But I couldn't because I was in the middle of a big transition in my life. I was in the middle of a move between apartments. And also that kind of trauma after losing a pet, I needed time to mourn. I needed time to heal. And I didn't get another cat I have right now, until 6 months later. And I got her from a wonderful breeder in San Diego, a woman named Diane Kramer, who breeds her cats with great, great integrity. She avoids inbreeding. She's very careful to breed for health traits. And so her Siamese cats tend to be very healthy and live very long lives. Sasha, you've seen her. She's 10 years old. She's like the ever-ready bunny. I mean, boundless energy. She still acts like a kitten. Yeah, Joyce, I know we talked about this. It took you over a year. It's everybody has to do it at their own rate. Some people will dive right in and get another pet right away, and that's fine too. I never know where this show's going to go, but I didn't think we'd be talking about this. But I'm a big believer that if you really want to honor the memory of your last pet, you take all that love you had for them. Literally, it's like all that love, like you could literally hold it in your hands like this, or you hold it in your heart, and you give that to the next pet, because I believe their soul, the last pet we had, their soul is watching that and they're going, yeah, please take that love from me, give it to the next pet. That's how you honor me. And I don't know, Joyce, if that you've had that feeling like you're honoring your last pet, but that's how I very much feel in loving Sasha. I'm loving Charlie too. Well, I guess I should wind this down. I've been on here an hour and 15 minutes. Don't have a whole lot of people on today, but then that's partially my fault because I wasn't on here for the last 3 weeks. And a lot of you probably didn't know when I was going to be on. I wasn't on last week at all. And then the week before that, I was not well and I didn't want to be on camera. So I just showed my Audrey Hepburn drawing for a few minutes. And then the week before that, Joyce, thankfully you and Pam and I had done that Carol Burnett tribute special. And I think all three of us have reason to be very proud of that special. And anyone who hasn't seen it, please watch it. We put our hearts into that. We did it at the time for Carol Burnett's 91st birthday. She's now 92. But I told my personal stories of meeting Carol Burnett. Pam of Pomona Remembers talked about how Carol Burnett had affected her life greatly. Joyce, you did a glowing astrological chart, which just confirmed Carol Burnett's great mission to this world and purpose. I wish there was a way we could get Carol Burnett to watch that. I think she would have been touched by what we did. So anyway, that it helped me to have that show as a rerun, because I think it's one of the best reruns I have. And then the next week I did my Audrey Hepburn. Last week I just played hooky. Forgive me. Forgive me. I needed another week to heal, but I'm back this week. And hopefully, as always, this show, even when I don't get a lot of people live, I get people who watch it afterwards. So it's out here for you. And I'll be back next week, maybe a little better prepared, a few more stories, clean shaven next week. I told at the beginning of the show, this was just accidental. Got rid of the mustache, but yet this, that's the thing when you work home, and you don't go out. I tend to be one of these guys who has accidental beards after about 5 days. Oh, Joyce, thank you so much. Thank you. I want to thank all of you. I've read your comments, and so many of you have had just the sweetest things to say to me. And that alone gives me reason to keep doing this show every Monday, to have people like yourselves. It touches my heart greatly, and I appreciate you very much. I'm going to sign out, but as I have work to do tonight. I've got to read the rest of this book and get ready for my show tomorrow with Whimsy. But yes, if you want another dose of Chuck, tune into the Oracle of Whimsy Taco Tuesdays here on YouTube, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, where we talk about all these wonderful things going on in the news and other things. And Whimsy and I sometimes get very silly together because we used to work together in the health industry. And I've told this on her show. We used to get in trouble at work for talking too much. Yes, two adults, two highly trained professional adults, and we were chided like we were in kindergarten for talking too much, but we did. So the great thing about doing the show with Whimsy is we can talk all we want now. And sometimes we do get silly and crazy and funny with each other in between all the silliness. But I'm glad she made it back safely from Israel. Had some adventures. To get out of Israel, she had to go to Dubai, and from Dubai fly back to America. But Dubai turned out to be a beautiful adventure to itself. She sent back some beautiful pictures. It makes me want to go there now. It looks like the Emerald City out of The Wizard of Oz. So enchanting. And she said she was treated like gold. She was treated so well while there. You can tell I'm getting the travel bug. I got to get my passport renewed. So anyway, I'm going to sign out for now. Love you. Thank you for joining me. And I'll see you next week at the same time and same place. Bye for now.